Another open beta tester event has come and gone, and if you missed this one, you should probably stop skipping episodes because the game being reviewed doesn't interest you. Also, you can always just follow my Twitter or sign up for the forums. There's options, is what I'm saying, but enough about that. Last time in the open beta tester event, I looked at ArcheAge, the game I chose due to its relative freshness in the MMO market, its various sandbox-style features, and the fact it seemed well-suited for many players of a community to band together and work toward a common goal. Spoilers for those who didn't watch that last one, it wasn't. So this time I've decided to look at something a lot more user-friendly, something a lot more like an actual sandbox. Something far better suited for a large number of players to get into without having to worry about being separated by their levels, skills, party size, or time and goals. And for some reason, something's still published by Trion. This is the MMO Grinder, and it's time to look at Trove. Before I go into the game, I'll go into what I do for every open beta tester event. Like the last time in ArcheAge, I let everyone who watches the previous video know what game I had planned to review next, and invited them to join up with Grindstone to play along and offer feedback. Unlike just being in Grindstone, I'll also provide a link to a Google document where any member who wishes to can view the script and even provide notes and feedback as it's being written. At the end, I ask everyone who's participated to provide their name and leave a little quote behind if they wish. I do it mostly when I think of a good game that might fit the theme. As for Trove, it certainly did. I'm certain the word Minecraft has crossed far more than a few 100,000 lips. That's the funny thing about Minecraft. It served as both a genre initiator and popularizer. If people aren't looking to cash in on the big blocky style, they're looking to cash in on the slow resource-gathering survival mechanic. So where does Trove fit in? Both, really, but not exactly. I've looked at two Minecraft-style games before, or as I call them, voxel builders. Brickforce, a voxel-based arena shooter, and Landmark, a mining and resource-gathering EverQuest tie-in of sorts with a land-claiming and building mechanic. While Brickforce was based upon creativity being translated into creating staged content for other players in a simple shooter, and Landmark focused more on the gathering and survival aspects in order to create something in a hostile world, Trove sits somewhere between these two. In fact, Trove is a bit more in common with a game known as Cube World, a pay-to-play indie title by Pick Roma, currently still in alpha, which focuses on a better class combat system and an explore and loot mechanic. And it hasn't received an update more complex than changing the copyright year on the bottom of the website since 2013. Second best $20 I've ever wasted. God, I hate early access gaming. To tell you anything more about Trove in this intro, beyond comparing it to the games people inevitably make mentions of, would take away from the rest of the review. It's simplistic in the extreme, so let's not waste any more time and just get right to it. Get used to this word, simplistic. It doesn't mean bad, it means simplistic, and Trove's graphics are just that. The voxels in the game are very large, so large in fact that your character is actually smaller than one single voxel. What might take some getting used to, however, is that you can't just walk through a single voxel hole in a wall as if it were a door, although you can fall through a single voxel hole in the floor. Also, your character can just walk up one voxel by walking onto it, instantly placing you on top of the block without needing to jump. It feels odd if you're coming from Minecraft and might take some getting used to. Trove's world is composed of vast themed biomes, each with a very distinct color theme, building style, and environment. There's simple biomes like forests with castles, deserts with cacti, and more imaginative biomes like the flat, dark, glow-accented neon city, with dungeons resembling Tron-like futuristic buildings, and the sugar-soaked Candoria with towering gumball machines and factories made of gingerbread. What makes up most of the environments are large single-color blocks that have an interesting shader on them, but are completely devoid of any texture. There's no leaf blocks to represent trees or grass blocks to represent the ground, just different shades of green for both. Still, despite the limited texturing and large voxels, there's parts of the game that look very nice, and many of the dungeons are imaginatively designed, despite this limitation. A major benefit of this simplicity is that mineable ores are extremely easy to identify, as they use smaller voxels to simulate texture and are easily spotted from massive distances against the otherwise smooth environments. In addition to the use of small voxels for ore detailing, the characters and enemies are also made up of small voxels, and for blocky characters, they're surprisingly well animated and lively. There's even monsters such as the Shadow Knight that lose parts of themselves as you attack and damage them. Smaller voxels are also used for decorative items, but I'll speak more about those when I talk about the various crafting options in this game. While enemies tend to match the biome you're in, like skeletons in the undead zones and walking lollipops in the candy biome, you'll notice that many of these enemies are reskins more or less, and tend to behave exactly like another enemy regardless of what they look like. There's a monster that acts as a simple melee warrior with a smash attack, and it can be a mushroom, a dragon, a yeti, what have you. The game, when it's behaving, runs remarkably well and is a frighteningly small download for a game that feels as vast as it does. One player looking to join the event with us told me he hadn't even downloaded the game yet, and then told me he was fully installed within a matter of minutes. However, as a Trion game, you'll still need to use the glyph launcher. Settings are easily adjusted to fit any PC, even those with the most minimal capabilities. However, some have noted issues with its use of OpenGL, and although a DirectX option was later patched in, it doesn't seem like the best option at the moment. On the plus side, if you remember the horrendous framerate issues from closed beta, they've been greatly improved and usually only show up if you've been logged in for a very long time. Hey, I haven't said simplistic in a while, have I? Yeah, Trove's music is very simplistic. The tracks are all very short, low-key tunes. It's interesting to listen to and fits this very childlike feel of this game. Imagine something being played one note at a time on a piano or a keyboard, slowly and deliberately with long pauses and steady cadence, and you'll get the idea. Or just listen to what's playing in the background while I'm talking. The overall tone remains the same throughout the game, even though the songs are different for each biome. Even some more serious zones and themes, which use deeper sounds, still remain lighthearted. Tracks are fairly short and don't repeat immediately, but they do usually reset upon entering a new biome. There's plenty of musical silence though, and the tracks can be so muted you might not even notice them in the first place. Some players are more than willing to mute the music and provide their own soundtrack. The sound work, on the other hand, isn't bad, but it's very poorly balanced. The effects work, they're lighthearted and impactful, but player beware, if you're wearing headphones, you're likely going to receive a wonderful jump scare the first time you kill an enemy, as weapon strikes and enemy deaths result in an absurdly loud pop noise that is easily 5 times louder than any other sound in this game. Even dropping the sound as low as possible without muting it will still have it at an unpleasant level. Be wary. Other obnoxious sounds are the level up chime and the crafting sound, which repeats the same noise for every item you create, and creating hundreds or thousands of cubes in the cube converter might drive you mad. Enemies sometimes speak, but the lines are under a very heavy filter unless you're really listening, and you might not even notice that they are saying words. Mushrooms occasionally yell "mushroom" as they attack. Enemies in the candy biome have a tendency to yell "eat me" or "don't eat me", and have this amazing final death cry of "sprinkles". I wouldn't recommend outright muting the sound because you'll miss out on a very interesting aspect of the sound design, the music block system. I'll go a little more into this in the community section as it pertains highly to the club worlds and the serious creativity of this community. I should get the immediate Minecraft comparisons out of the way first. While very similar in genre, involving exploring vast landscapes, battling monsters, and building items and structures with your earned and collected resources, Trove is still pretty much the night to Minecraft's day. Minecraft is far more complex than Trove will ever be. There's no redstone or any other wiring system, so no one is building a boring virtual computer here. And the difference in relative voxel size lends itself to the world's creations being a bit harder to recognize unless they're made on a massive scale. Trove is also much more combat-oriented than Minecraft, whereas Minecraft's emphasis is largely on building and crafting. When getting the game, you'll need the glyph launcher, Trion's catch-all launcher and one of my favorite launchers in general. Once you've installed the launcher, or if you already have it due to playing Rift or Arcade, you should be able to get Trove right away. As I've said, it's a shockingly quick download. You'll begin the game in a tutorial area inside a building filled with signs that'll give you a general idea of the controls. Use WASD to move, space to jump, left click to attack, right click to use your first skill, and once unlocked, 1 and 2 to use your other skills. The tab key, by default, switches between building mode and combat mode. There are a few controls the game doesn't seem to tell you about, like pressing Z to summon your mount when you finally get one, and X to summon your mag rider when you gain that. A little more on those later. You'll start as the Knight class, the only class that's immediately unlocked at the start of this game. This is due to a recent patch that introduced the class coin system. New players are given the Knight, and a coin to immediately unlock one of the remaining classes. If you played back when the game unlocked both the Knight and Gunslinger as starter classes, you're stuck with those. Sorry. Classes are easy enough to follow and come in melee and magic types. Each class has a passive ability, 2 skills, and an ultimate. You unlock skills as you level, unlocking all of them by level 5 in each class. Knights are tanks without the taunts. They can take a ton of damage and have a passive that increases their attack power when they get hit. They attack in a slow sweeping horizontal arc and have the ability to slam the ground for knockback, dash forward quickly, and when activating their ultimate, gain a full heal and temporary invincibility. Gunslinger is one of the more debated classes in the game, considered by some to be the weakest offering, while others consider it quite powerful. Technically a magic class, the Gunslinger fires 2 pistols, and it's the only class in the game, so far, that uses guns. They can shoot, charge a shot, shoot the ground to rocket themselves into the air, and, as their ultimate, greatly increase their movement speed and fire rate for a short time. Most interesting is their passive, that grants them a random chance when hitting their targets to instantly gain a fully charged shot. Dracolight's another magic class that's pretty much melee ranged. They cast a flamethrower-style spell with left-click, have a small dragon pet that can fire once it's charged up by right-clicking, they can drop up to 3 bombs that'll explode when they're attacked, and their ultimate turns them into a dragon, increasing health and attack for a short while. As dragon hybrids, they take far less damage from fire and lava. Fey Trickster is considered the most OP class in the game by many, as another magic class that can fire shots from range, teleport forward, and per teleport leave behind up to 3 clones that enemies will always go after. Their one skill is the least useful. Essentially, it's an area bomb that does moderate damage to enemies and can blow up blocks. Their ultimate leaves 3 copies of their staff behind to fire upon enemies as long as they're up. The reason they're considered so overpowered is that their passive increases the amount of damage they do for as long as they go unharmed. Load up on magic damage and you'll wreck face with your basic attack. Neon Ninja is my favorite class in the game, but they're the subject of much debate as they are extremely fragile for a melee class, instead being made for fast damage and quick escapes. They attack with quick strikes and a small cone in front of them, can backflip to drop aggro and go into stealth, and dash forward to damage and bind any enemy in their path. Using their ultimate temporarily adds a ranged beam to normal attacks. Neon Ninja's most damaging ability is found in their passive, as they gain charges when they attack. Any time that you have at least 1 charge, you can use your backflip, then attack normally while still stealth to fire shurikens. All charges are consumed at once, and the more charges you have, the more ninja stars that you throw. Hitting with full charges does some serious damage. They're pretty much the only class I really enjoy the feel of, but keep a very close eye on your health as you cannot take hits for the life of you. Another tanky character, the puntastic Candy Barbarian, is designed to get into the fray and do as much damage to as many things as possible. They attack with dual melee weapons, can do a knockback spin with right-click, jump and smash into the ground with 1, and drop a massive ice cream cone as their ultimate. As a passive, their attacks drop candy pieces that can heal or buff the attack speed of the player and any nearby player. The ice cream cone ultimate leaves a ton of candy on the ground wherever it drops. The most recent class at the time of this video is another magic class, the Ice Sage. As the name suggests, they're focused on ice spells, and their passive allows them to not only slow opponents that they hit, but also walk along ice without sliding. Possibly because they don't have feet. The normal attack drops an ice shard onto enemies. They can shield themselves to boost their health and magic attack, and their ultimate casts a mass freeze on all nearby enemies. They aren't the easiest class to play and tend to be the weakest among the mages, but they work really well when backed up by another class. Once you've decided on your backup class, you can switch over to your unlocked classes with a class changer, easily crafted or found in other players' housing plots. Switching to a newly unlocked class starts you over at level 1 with that class. When you switch classes, any gear equipped on that class will remain on it until you switch back again. Character progression in the game is mostly based on grinding out levels and equipping better items. You start out with a few tasks from the tutorial asking you to craft a hub portal. That hub portal is completely useless, by the way. It's some leftover stuff from Alpha, possibly, because now you can just enter the hub world at any time by holding down the H key. Problem is that once you've got it crafted, it's just taking up space, so feel free to just throw it away once you've gotten credit for making one. In a hub world, you'll find some building placed by Trion, usually themed around whatever event is running, as well as numerous player houses known as cornerstones, which I'll get into a bit later. In this world, you'll find portals to other worlds, color-coded and displayed to the suggested level for each one. I say suggested because there is no level lock keeping you from entering those worlds that you're not supposed to go into yet. It's just that as a solo player, the items inside higher level worlds will not be useful to you until you reach that level. These worlds are called the Adventure Worlds and are tiered as follows: Novice for 1 through 3, Adept for 4 through 5, Elite for 6 through 7, and Master for 8 through 9. Beyond that are the Uber Worlds, U1 through U5, all level 10. You may also run into portals that are white with a heart underneath that have a more specific name. These are Club World portals and are run by the various guilds in this game, called, well, clubs. I'll touch more on these in community, but they won't contain any enemies if you're in the mood to just explore. There's really no end game to be had here, as once you reach level 10 you can safely access every difficulty level, even though you still have a level cap of 20. From that point on, it's all about collecting and upgrading your gear, which brings us to the game's very simple loot system. All items you collect belong to you alone and will not be visible to other players, so don't think you're just stealing stuff from people by taking it. Just press E near the item to pick it up. Your inventory is somewhat limited, so you won't be able to hoard things for long, but there's plenty of places that you can store, including the personal chest item that you can craft. You'll have one slot for your weapon, one slot for a hat, one slot for a face mask, and one for a ring, which is the only equipable item that can't be found while adventuring. It's possible random enemies will drop gear, but if you want to guarantee yourself an item, you'll need to work your way into dungeons. Dungeons are essentially the buildings you'll find in the adventure worlds that aren't player-made cornerstone houses. They can look like anything: a small castle, a floating cloud city, a beehive, a flower pot, what have you. They're designed by a community in a manner I'll talk about a bit in the community section, but the easiest way to tell you're near a dungeon is the quest bar that'll appear in the upper right corner. Each quest bar contains a short instruction. Some like defeat the Mushroom Lord or defeat the Golden Beetle are instructing you to find and defeat a boss to reveal a treasure chest. Occasionally you'll also see danger awaits at this location. These are the ominous totem encounters. Once you enter what is normally a boss room, you'll see a skull in the middle of the room instead. Press E near it to spawn 2 waves of enemies that will make a treasure chest appear when defeated. If you run across a nondescript yellow platform that reads "Gather 3 Trovians at this spot," that's literally all you have to do. Once 3 or more players are in the area, the chest will spawn. Completing the quest also offers up various amounts of experience as a bonus. Some dungeons will appear far larger than others, and those dungeons might offer up several boss encounters before you reach the true boss. Those encounters are much tougher, but far more rewarding in gaining experience. Clearing any dungeon of any size will spawn a yellow portal that will warp you back in the beginning of the dungeon for an easy exit. Easy ways to tell if a dungeon has already been cleared include simply looking for the giant red X over the dungeon or on the map, seeing if there's a yellow portal outside the entrance, and checking to see if a quest appears when you're near it. While you're out adventuring, you might hear a sudden thunderous rumbling, followed by a crash. These are the occasionally spawning shadow giants, nicknamed ODSTs, who appear out of portals in the sky and crash down near players. If you're alone, you should only ever see one coming towards you, but if you're traveling with a group, you'll likely get one for each person that's present. They're about as tough as a dungeon boss, but only drop flux as loot. If anything, they seem to be in the game to punish AFK players, but it's not uncommon to have a platoon of shadow giants drop in on you when you're facing a dungeon boss. Be wary. One dungeon type that does not grant equipment loot will have a large scroll over the top. These recipe layers are the only way to obtain the decorative items for world building. Unlike Minecraft, you don't have the ability to construct several decorative items unless you've specifically found the recipes for them. As of the current patch, recipe layers will give you a recipe for that biome, and using the recipe will randomly grant you one decorative item recipe that you don't currently possess. If you've unlocked all the decorative items in that biome, it won't work for you anymore unless more items get added later. Once you start outfitting yourself with drops from enemies in dungeons, you'll quickly take notice of the seemingly random stats assigned to each. Each stat will affect your character in some way, but some stats are far more useful for certain classes than they are for others. Self-explanatory stats are health regeneration and energy regeneration. Max health, which comes in both base number and a percentage of current total varieties, is useful for any warrior or mage designed to get into the fray and take damage, like candy barbarians, knights, and dracolites. Movement speed, of course, will let you move around on foot faster. Physical attack is used for melee classes and magic attack for mages and gunslingers. Attack speed is useful across the board for most classes, but best focused on classes like the Gunslinger and Neon Ninja, whose passives will make better use of it. It is completely worthless to the Dracolite, and it has no effect on the Flamethrower. Knockback, well, knocks back enemies when they're hit. It's pretty useful for Gunslingers or any ranged class that would rather not have enemies approach them. Stability will keep you from getting knocked back, useful on classes like the Knight, Dracolite, and Candy Barbarian, who need to stay in the fray. One of the most desired stats, Jump, is simpler than it sounds. Instead of merely increasing your jump height, the stat increases with the number of times you can jump. Have an item with +1 jump, you can now double jump. Have +4 jump, you can now jump 5 times. There's seemingly no cap on this, so if someone ends up with 15, 32, hell, over 50 jumps, then that's the number of times they can jump. You can make your character practically fly. Some gunslinger players prefer to keep this stat very high and just bounce around in the air while firing down on hapless enemies. I recommend at least one extra jump, as it helps with trickier platforming in dungeons, and ensures that you'll be able to clear the normal 3-block height, provided the occasional bug that might keep you from doing this doesn't pop up. 2 non-battle stats, Lasermancy and Magic Find, don't have terribly obvious functions. Since your mining mode fires out a laser, Lasermancy is your ability to mine blocks. Higher Lasermancy means you'll mine blocks faster. Magic Find increases the quality of the loot that you'll find. Think of it as a luck stat. In fact, Magic Find ties into the death penalty of this game. If you're killed while playing, you'll transform into a headstone, which other players can hold E to revive you when they reach you. Alternately, you can choose to respawn at the center of the map, or wherever you set your cornerstone last. You get 50 base Magic Find, but lose all of it upon death. It recharges slowly with kills and time, but each death will reset the base 50 back to 0. Any Magic Find you have on your gear, of course, is permanent as long as it's equipped. If you find yourself permanently stuck somewhere, you can kill your avatar with respawn, but this will trigger the Magic Find penalty. To keep yourself healed, simply press the Q key to use one of your renewable potions. It'll instantly restore 50% of your maximum health. Potions with various other effects can be purchased and earned in the cash shop. To restore your potions to full, find any glowing crystal rejuvenation station, usually found on player cornerstones and in some areas while out adventuring. Excess loot, and trust me, you'll have a lot, is broken down in a manner of ways. First off, once you've found or crafted a deconstructor, you can place and destroy your excess items here in exchange for flux, a required component in upgrading and some crafting. Items and loot can be upgraded 25 times for an increasing flux cost, but it's recommended you save up your flux until you have some max quality gear. It'll likely serve you better if you destroy your gear in the Style Saver, another station that can be crafted or found among player cornerstone lots. In the Style Saver, you unlock a weapon or armor's look by destroying it. Anytime you want to equip the look of a weapon or armor, press C to open your character page and click on the blank icon below your equipment to bring up the list of styles that you've unlocked. Once you've unlocked a style, you cannot place it in the Style Saver again for obvious reasons, and the item description will read, "This is already in your collection," instead of "This is not in your collection." I highly recommend that you place all new equipment that you don't plan to use immediately into the Style Saver first. Now, you might, at first, like I did, think you'd only want to unlock styles that you personally like, and get the much harder to obtain flux by placing your unwanted looks into the deconstructor for the much harder to come by flux. Don't do this. You're likely to run into copies of stuff multiple times, but new styles will grant you mastery points when saved. Ah, yes, mastery points. Think of them as your account level rather than your character level. Each time you accomplish certain tasks, like leveling up a class, crafting an unlockable item like a mount, hell, even buying or receiving an unlockable item, you'll gain mastery points. And as you collect them, you'll receive tons of bonuses, but besides the minor percentage boost to health and damage, I'll go over that more in the cash shop section, since it's tied to a lot of those items. To check your mastery level, go to the character page by hitting C and look near the top. Click the medal to see what bonuses are offered per level. Of course, if you're in this game to make things and not just break them and collect them, you're probably wondering why I haven't gone over crafting and building yet, especially since I've mentioned cornerstones a few times now. So what is a cornerstone? It's a flat gray plot of land marked with a sign. You'll find countless such plots scattered around the world as you adventure. As shown in the tutorial, simply walking over and pressing E on the sign will build up your cornerstone plot. At the start, and by default, it's a small yellow house with a red roof and includes a rejuvenation station, a crafting bench, and some mineable shapestone. Any changes made to the cornerstone will remain. Note that you are the only one who can modify your cornerstone. While you don't have too much horizontal space to work with, the amount of vertical space you get is insane, and it's not uncommon to see players' cornerstones towering into the stratosphere. The best thing about cornerstones, though, they solve the biggest problem with land ownership in MMOs. They're completely transferable. What do I mean by that? Well, when you place a cornerstone on a plot, sure, it's now tagged as yours, but it does not remain yours indefinitely. Did you find a new cornerstone plot? Use that one in your cornerstone and everything placed upon it is instantly teleported to that space, removing it from the last place you put it. If you go offline, your cornerstone vanishes from that plot after a certain period of time, so you won't have to worry about losing it in the event of a crash, but you won't get to keep it where it is when you log in the next day. Modifying the cornerstone uses the game's very simple mining system. As I've said a few times, you mine with a laser by switching to build mode with a tab key. Your character will turn translucent and your action bar will change to display various building materials instead of skills. Hold right click to mine the blocks that you're aiming at. Left click places the block or item that you've highlighted on your action bar. Beware that while you can mine things like your crafting bench and rejuvenation station normally, the ones that are given to you in the default cornerstone will be destroyed if you mine them. Luckily, neither item is that hard to craft or requires too many items. However, any item you place yourself can be mined and easily retrieved, be it a station or block in the event you want to move it. There's several types of crafting, starting with personal crafting by pressing the V key. You can make things like bombs for faster but inelegant mining, and some things I'll mention in community like shadow keys and origin portal potions, and the basic crafting bench. Your crafting bench is where you'll construct utilities in your cornerstone, like the class changer, deconstructor, style saver, and personal storage chest. Another fantastic thing about how this game works is that you can use utilities in a player's cornerstone. Even if you access their personal storage chest, you're actually accessing your personal storage chest. You won't be stealing any items from any players or unwillingly donating to them, so if you want to drop off some stuff but your cornerstone isn't anywhere nearby, you can drop stuff off at anyone's cornerstone without issue. Also creatable at the crafting bench are stations like the workbench, cube converter, and fun factory, which allow you to craft decorative items. You'll need the appropriate recipes for them, of course, and getting special colored blocks for the cube converter is frighteningly difficult, as they exist in the world as mineable blocks and are only found rarely during mining. To make anything, you'll need to do a lot of resource gathering. Some things can be found in the field, like bottles, bones, mushroom chunks, and enchanted wood. Others, like sticky ichor and robotic salvage, can only be found by killing certain enemies. Then, of course, there's the ores, color-coded for your convenience. The basic level purple ore is shapestone, the mid-level blue ore is formicite, and the bright yellow rare ore is infinium. There's also some side materials like primordial flames, glacial shards, somber souls, and golden souls that you'll be much more likely to find in certain biomes, but have a slight chance of appearing anywhere. Each decorative item you craft will require a certain combination of these materials. In the case of the cube converter, you'll need the primal color cubes that are mined out from any area. For example, and unlike how it works in Minecraft, mining light green blocks from the ground or dark green blocks from a tree will both only give you the same primal green block in your inventory. The cube converter can change these primal blocks into blocks of varying hues and textures. If you're really into the grind, you can also use two profession crafting stations, gardening and ring crafting. Ring crafting is the only way to obtain rings to equip and uses up a ton of shapestone and flux during creation. Gardening is more complex with the materials you need, but allows you to grow some items instead of merely having to gather them, as well as providing you with the only means of obtaining steed feed, which is used in crafting specialty mounts. It takes a lot of materials to do either profession, but ranking them up grants an absurd amount of mastery points. This game still comes across as glitchy and very beta. Changes are being made constantly, like the fact I didn't talk about Warp Seed because the patch that dropped the minute I was writing this line changed its name to Glim and completely changed what it's used for. There's a slot for equipable wings, but those wings haven't been implemented. There's plenty of room to grow, but while you're waiting for the devs to input more features, let's see what the community is doing now to make this game interesting, or insufferable for others. This community is very much a mixed bag. You've got your casual players, your min-maxers, your world creators, and your I wish I could blow up this guy's cornerstone world destroyers. All servers are linked across all countries, so it's entirely possible the general chat might erupt into random language conversations, which is the least of your worries. Most people will give helpful advice, just not in general chat. This is another Trion title where the people you meet are far less obnoxious than presented by the general chat. Some things go down in that channel is all I'm saying. In fact, it's a common point of contention whenever Trion releases a patch but does something odd or half-finished, like including that wings slot, or claiming you can trade your Glim at the Pirate's Cove, and not actually patching in the Pirate's Cove. The questions come up so often, but players just tend to get mad at the people asking them instead, or offer up their own brand of heavy-handed sarcasm to compensate for their failed careers as stand-up comedians. Basically, good luck asking for help in that channel. Luckily, a trade channel was made in a recent patch in case you prefer to trade items. Oddly, the chat channels do seem to be split among some form of micro-server, so the general chat you're seeing might not be the same chat that the player right next to you is reading. This brings me to another odd quirk of Trove. There is no form of collectible currency, like gold. Instead, players have chosen to let Flux fill that role. Most players will trade items for Flux, even though Flux isn't as easy to come by as the arguably more useful Shapestone. So if you're looking to buy items you don't have rather than grind for them or earn them yourself, hold on to that Flux and don't bother with upgrades anytime soon. This is one of those games where both parties need to be online in order to make a friend. There's no invite accept system. If you're online and send a friend invite to someone else who's online, they'll get a pop-up asking them to accept. Once friends, you can teleport to your friend by pressing the join button next to that friend's name on the social menu, accessed with O. The system also applies for guilds, again called clubs. Speaking of clubs, if the min-maxer general chat buffoonery is getting you down, you can likely restore your faith in this community by accessing some of the community club worlds. Club worlds, as the name suggests, are set-aside areas where the community of that club, depending on who has what permission, can create whatever they want, like a giant cornerstone, as well as invite others to that world by offering up portals at the portal crafting station. If you like a club world you found, locate the portal crafting station and make one for yourself to bring to your cornerstone or club world. Club worlds can show various levels of creativity. I've seen giant continent-spanning cathedrals, worlds filled with scenic and fun pixel art, and most notably worlds filled with mag rider tracks, Trove's equivalent to the minecarts from Minecraft, that play music as you ride over them. I highly suggest checking out the club worlds of Google Translate and Trove Maestros, as they contain the most impressive collections of music tracks that we've seen so far. Especially noteworthy is the Sonic the Hedgehog medley in Google Translate. I just hope that someone finished decorating it. Making a club world is easy, and since you're permitted to join up to 6 clubs, you can create your own personal club world in case the club that you joined isn't trusting you to mess around with making your own stuff. If you want to represent a certain club next to your username, simply check the flag on the club that you want in the club menu, accessible with the P key. You can also teleport to that club's club world by pressing the club world button on the same menu. If you're a leader of a club world, you can set permissions to build on each section of that world by typing /zone restrict followed by the member rank that you want to restrict the section to. You can also add new sections to the club world by crafting terraformers, but be warned that they are very fickle, and when you use one, know that if you're a fan of building near the coast of an area, you're likely going to destroy a large portion of everything you built there. Lay down your land plots first before you start building just to be safe. Community creativity is at the forefront here, and the developers know this. You might notice that every weapon and armor piece is marked with a name. That's the player that's designed the item. The official Trove forum and Trove subreddit offer plenty of instructions if you're interested in designing your own content for the game, and if the content is approved and included by the developers, you'll get some nice cash shop point rewards. There's no party system in the game, but any nearby players will share any item drops, including mined ores, so there's absolutely no need to race someone to an ore vein. As long as you're close enough, you'll get the loot as well, and you don't even have to mine it yourself. Even dungeon experience is shared with all nearby players. There's really no reason not to group up with people. And yet many people, including me, get annoyed when people start following them around. Okay, to be fair, if I'm playing the game solo, I'm perfectly fine with that. It's really more frustrating when you're traveling with a group of your friends. If someone has to go AFK or is lagging behind, you won't be able to make sure that someone following your group around will wait until you're all together to make sure that everyone gets a cut of the loot or experience. It's not super detrimental, it's just kind of annoying. If you want to instantly teleport to a random player on the map so you can join up with others more easily, press E on the rally blade at the beginning of each new adventure world that you enter. If you hold down E on the rally blade instead, you can remove the ability for others to teleport to you if you'd rather play on your own. This can be toggled on and off at will. If you want a friend to join you, note that they won't immediately teleport to you, and instead port to the starting area of the world that you're in. If you want them to get to you easier, drop a craftable Origin Portal potion to create a portal to the starting area that they can hop through. Just be warned that anyone can jump into this portal if you're adamant about keeping your party to your friends only. There is one place where you're limited by the amount of people that can join. While out searching for dungeons, you might notice a tall, dark building marked with a stylized key symbol. These are shadow arenas, which require shadow keys to unlock. You can craft keys by combining gems and fragments found as loot in other dungeons. Once you have a key, you can unlock the portal in the Shadow Arena, which will teleport you and up to 7 other people to a massive area with an ominous totem in the center. Use the totem and you'll start a wave of enemies. Defeat the final boss at the end of 5 waves, and you'll get the loot and be ported out of the dungeon to a safe area. If you have another key, you can enter another Shadow Arena until everyone in your party runs out of keys. If you die, you cannot be revived until the next wave. If everyone in your group dies, you'll have to start the entire arena event over. These systems all make the game very power level friendly. I chose this for the open beta tester event because anyone could join us at nearly any time, and it didn't matter where we were or what we were doing. I'm not sure how many of us are planning to still play this after the video is out, but I tend to log in almost daily and check out what's new in each patch. If you decide to play this game, perhaps you'll run into one of us sometime. Okay, so you know that mastery system I was talking about earlier? It's pretty heavily tied into the cash shop. The game's cash shop has 2 forms of currency, credits and qubits. Credits are the paid currency, but gaining mastery ranks occasionally will grant a few. They have an odd Microsoft point syndrome thing going on. $750 for $5, $3,250 for $20. So yeah, you pay for credits, but how do you get qubits? If you said the mastery system, thanks for paying attention, but that's not the only way, or even the most reliable way. Instead, qubits are most easily earned by simply gaining the star bonus for playing dungeons each day. When you first log in each day, you'll notice a bar in the upper right corner with a total of qubits next to it. If you're playing on a weekday, it will say 500. If you're playing on a weekend, 1000. By completing dungeons, you'll earn points toward filling the bar. Large dungeon bosses fill in greater amounts, but a mere half hour of dungeon grinding should be enough to fill the bar for the day. Do this every day to see your qubits rise faster than you'd ever think they could. Of course, there is plenty to spend qubits and credits on, but not everything in here is necessary. First thing I'd suggest is a mount. The 2 starter horse mounts are priority 1. I don't care if you're working towards unlocking a new class, buy one of the 500 qubit mounts with your first qubit bonus. Now that all the mounts travel at fast speed, there's no reason not to get the early ones, and you'll be able to traverse the massive areas of Trove much more easily. Seriously, get a mount, your friends will thank you. Of course, there are pricier mounts, as well as the rather expensive credits-only mounts. However, each mount you unlock will give you a boost of 50 mastery points, which is kinda crap when you remember some of the mounts are credit-only. By the way, be warned that the Fun Police is a mag rider and not a mount. One of the less important item sets are the alternate outfits. Trove's characters, even in mini voxel form, aren't so detailed that an outfit is going to be too obvious. They're way too pricey for a simple color change and can only be purchased with credits. Getting a cash shop outfit does change up your class's spell effect colors, but still, not really worth it. A recent addition is the alternate flask, which thankfully can be purchased with qubits, although the qubit price is insanely high compared to the credit cost. New flask effects consist of adding effects to the 50% heal, like increasing your movement speed, magic attack, restoring energy as well as health, granting a short immunity shield, or simply giving 100% heal. I never found the alternate flasks too necessary, although min-maxers with Fey Tricksters will love the Arcane Flask, and the 100% restoring Vital Great Flasks are great for anybody. Yes, mastery points are granted for unlocking flasks, but only 20 apiece. Classes are the thing most people will be working toward, as they contain most of the game's variety and replayability. You'll notice that you can only buy class coins with credits. If you're looking to unlock classes by yourself, do not buy these. The coins are only useful for those looking to trade them for goods to someone who wishes to unlock a class that way, as qubits and credits cannot be traded between players. The qubit price of unlocking a class varies by class, declining more as classes are released, and if you decide to go the credit route, you'll still pay less than you would for a class coin. Leveling classes also gives mastery point boosts, so the more classes you unlock and level, the higher you'll climb. Goods are an odd thing, but the closest thing to pay to win that this game has, provided there was anything to win. Either build crap or grind shadow arenas. If anything, some of the boosts are there for those who are willing to be lazy for a price, letting you unlock styles you might not have unlocked already, which can be purchased with qubits, and boosting the level of items that you have by 1 quality level. Still, a lot of these are granted to you with mastery levels, but I wouldn't advise worrying too much about what's located in here. Speaking of laziness, you can buy blocks in packs of 1,000 for credits. Don't do this, seriously, don't. My mining runs would end up with me having to throw away stacks of Primal Grey because I had multiple max stacks of nearly 10,000. Just craft some bombs, find an area with the color of the primal blocks you need, and throw them around. You'll gain far more blocks far faster and for free. The tab isn't completely useless though, as you can buy the recipe for both customizable signs and fancy bordered blocks, even with qubits, and they're much better purchases for the enthusiastic builder. Also, more mastery points. Finally, there's some Founder-style packs. The reasonably priced $20 pack, the questionably priced $50 pack, and the Are You Seriously Expensive $100 pack, which unlocks almost everything. It's your call if these packs might be something you'd have a use for, but I only bought the $100 pack when it went 50% off on Black Friday. It was kinda worth that. Of course, if you keep your eye on the net long enough, especially places like Twitch.tv, you might find Trion giving away prize packs and exclusive mounts, and they have a tendency to place decent starter packs in the Extra Life Humble Bundle. Search around if you're interested. So, what do I think of Trove? Well, I certainly don't hate it. I find it quite enjoyable in short bursts. Like many voxel builders, it's something I can easily get into and lose myself in, but it's also easy for me to get frustrated and lose that attention just as fast. What this game has over others like it is the combat system, which is a great amount of fun and feels so much better than most. Still, those looking for the sheer staggering amount of creativity that Minecraft is known for will likely not find it here. Sure, there are tools available, but the feeling of building a world is far different. Depending on what you like or don't like about voxel builders, Trove may or may not hold your attention. Here's my final rating. Don't confuse that bullet point with friendly community. What I mean is that the systems in Trove pretty much eliminate what would be considered most of the major points of strife in a multiplayer voxel builder. You can't steal ore or experience from other people because everything is shared. You can't steal land space because there's plenty, it's not permanent, and it's constantly moving around. You can't destroy other people's buildings because they're protected from outsiders. You can actually get a massive group and just go around exploring the world and taking down dungeons, which makes it a great game for groups of friends to enjoy. The combat system, especially when compared to the inevitably comparable, is light years better. Even with a somewhat wonky hit detection, you'll definitely feel far more in control, and varied playstyles allow players to approach the threats in whatever way they feel most comfortable with. Of course, if you'd rather just build, this game is as simple as they come, allowing you to craft and build in both your personal cornerstone and in club worlds where you have permission. It's fun to create things for others to see, as well as explore about to see what others have built. Let your imagination run wild, but try to keep the giant glowing penises to a minimum. Remember when I said buy 'em out first? Buy 'em out first. Seriously, there's no reason not to anymore, and it'll make everything 10 times easier. It's a simple qubit unlock, so after your first daily bonus, just do it, trust me. The fancier ones can wait, unless you really need to travel around in a rocket-powered plush recliner. Which I did. Of course, your main goal at the start will be unlocking classes, but you'll be spending at least a month or so attempting to unlock everything with just qubits, even if you're earning the daily bonuses. So if you'd rather just drop some cash to get a few more classes, it's not the worst use of your money in this game. Keep an eye out for any bonus offers and packs to see if you can't get yourself a better deal if you're looking to spend real money on this game. I know it's technically an open beta and bugs and reworks are going to happen, but this game changes around established aspects of the game more than Warframe does. In the time we were reviewing this, the game changed the speed at which mounts moved and the cost of specialty flasks, added 2 classes, added a wing slot for wings that still aren't implemented, made mag riders spin uncontrollably and then stop randomly before fixing them, and renamed Warpseed to Glim so it could be used as a store currency for a store that doesn't exist yet. This was in the span of the last 3 weeks. To say the game's upgrade cycle is chaotic is a bit of an understatement. It's likely going to render a lot of this video obsolete in a couple months. If that bothers you, you may want to wait for an official launch announcement just so you don't have to relearn how to play this game every few weeks. The unlock process is unquestionably a grind. You need to unlock recipes to craft, you need to unlock styles and gear to advance, you need to grind qubits to unlock classes, you need to grind class levels to advance, you need to grind out ores and blocks if you want to construct the world. There's just a lot of slow work to put into the game. And while that may be seen as having something to work towards, others might find the process tedious and just give up on the whole thing in frustration. There's really not much direction in the game, and many who started the event while I wasn't around basically all stated that they had no idea how the game worked. As soon as the tutorial is over, there's a serious moment of, okay, now what do I do? And unless you just mess around, you might feel lost. No one tells you cornerstones will travel with you. No one tells you to search for dungeons to fight bosses. It's sandboxing the extreme of having no endgame goal whatsoever, but it seems a lot of people aren't willing to play in that sandbox without at least a nudge. Once you realize that there's nothing to do but the Archage Defender staple of make your own fun, people tend to leave quickly. I've seen players with grand ideas and great excitement for the game change their tune within a week. If you aren't enamored of world building and foresee burning out on this game, it might be best to play it casually, as it lends itself well to jumping in and out on occasion, and changing your focus occasionally could alleviate that samey feeling that creeps up on you. Otherwise, you might just get sick of it and not look at this game again for months. With that, another open beta tester event comes to a close, and I hope everyone who participated this time did enjoy it. Next time, let's revisit Grindstone's favorite try-hard company, with the premise that's just too goofy to pass up. I didn't announce it during the last video, but I will be attending MagFest 13 this year, just taking place a lot later in the month than it usually does. Actually, I have a couple Grindstone members we're going to meet up with, and I've actually brought stupid little shit like this if you want to come by and say hi. I've got a few of those, so, feel free to ask for one if you catch me there, or just contact me on Twitter and see what I'm up to. Anyway, when is that? Oh. I gotta leave, now, don't I?